With me this morning, the Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister, Josh Frydenberg, and also the Parliamentary Secretary to the Shadow Treasurer, Ed Husic. Gentlemen, good morning to you both.
Morning.
Senator Conroy says that the Minister should go in and apologise. Should he do that this morning?
No, look, the Minister has made a bit of a rhetorical flourish here, but it's also been clarified by the Prime Minister, and you just read out the Prime Minister's words, namely that the Australian Submarine Corporation is an important organisation doing important work with the Royal Australian Navy, and it's no news to say that there were some problems with the air warfare destroyer, some challenges.
Would you use the same language that Senator Johnston used?
I don't think I would use that same language, but I don't think we should actually lose sight of what the Prime Minister has said here.
Which is in contradiction.
No, he just said that the ASC is a very important organisation and doing important work with our Navy.
I know you're doing your best to defend the Defence Minister this morning, but
it's a rhetorical flourish.
Well, a rhetorical flourish. I think someone here might disagree with your take on it.
We normally get that from him.
Are these the barnacles that your guy was talking about in the party room yesterday? I mean, David Johnston clearly must be one of them, because to describe what he did at a time where they're already concerned about jobs and workers there believe and take pride in the work that they've undertaken, and it's obviously been reinforced by the Prime Minister's view in the statement that he issued yesterday. He's saying that they've met and exceeded expectation. And you would expect that a Defence Minister would use words with precision and with care, and he's demonstrated anything but. I know we don't have our own stealth fighters in Australia, but I'm sure there are a lot of people that would wish David Johnston to disappear after yesterday's performance.
The problem is, I guess, you could just brush it aside as a bit of rhetoric and colourful language, but the problem is he's talking about the ASC, which provides the maintenance program for our current fleet.
Yes.
So a fleet that our submariners use, and he's saying it's like an organisation that couldn't build a canoe.
No, but importantly in the Prime Minister's statement he has said...
The Prime Minister's statement, not the Defence Minister.
Well, the Prime Minister has said that the ASC have made a number of changes to their maintenance program, and then that has helped support our Collins-class submarine. So that's important. The second point is about the air warfare destroyers, where we all know about the challenges that have been involved there, and we are working constructively with them. But, the last word sits with the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister has made it very clear that the ASC is an important organisation doing important work with the Navy, and that's where it should stay.
Chris Bowen says that the Defence Minister's position is approaching untenable.
Oh, that's rubbish.
Why is that?
Well, because he's doing a fantastic job in that portfolio. You speak to anybody who knows about the details in defence, and they say he's right across it. He's very passionate. And
he's right across his detail.
Yeah,
that's what he's supposed to be. Is that the threshold we're measuring in his ministers by now?
Well, what we are saying...
What are we supposed to do, throw him a cookie because he's across his detail? Well, I mean, he's a Defence Minister. He should be across detail. It's a key portfolio.
Correct. And you speak to people in the know, and they say that he is right across the detail. Look, he's got to make some important decisions about the next generation of submarines.
So we can expect to see that he'll be the Defence Minister into the election?
There's a whole lot of... Absolutely. I don't have a problem with saying that. There's a lot of procurement that is going on with Defence. It's a major organisation. And we obviously, have deployed our personnel to Iraq.
Well, I guess the question to Labor in all of this is, if they are hundreds of millions of dollars over price and behind schedule, when does Labor and when do decision makers have to start making decisions based on what is the best bang for our buck?
Well, you work with the providers, and we've had contracts that have been released in the past where if we haven't been happy with them, we've worked with them to improve the things that we are dissatisfied with, and that's what should occur. But you shouldn't have a Defence Minister that is projecting a lack of confidence in our key equipment and hardware, because there aren't just people here listening, there are people overseas that are listening as well, and I don't see how this helps us in any shape or form. And if they're so confident in David Johnston as Defence Minister, well, it would be interesting to see if he survives and he's the Defence Minister going into the election, because based on, when you look at his track record, there's enough to believe that he won't be in that position. And I think this is the latest example of a minister who's so gaff-prone. And if the key test for this minister is that he's across his detail, well, big deal. I mean, he's supposed to be. That is the threshold that he should be across his detail.
But Kieran, it's a bit rich here for Ed to be talking about, issues changes in defence. I mean, they reduced government spending as a proportion of
you went to
GDP
an
for
election
defence
saying you'd cut defence
down
pay.
to the lowest level since 1938. I mean, you ripped tens of billions of dollars out of defence. Stephen Conroy, as the Shadow Defence Minister, has not been covered in glory. He has been ridiculed in that role. And, you know, David Johnson is doing an important job.
Do you accept that that was a gaffe yesterday, though, given the various reasons?
I like to describe it as a rhetorical flourish, which has now been clarified by
Sounds
the
like a
Prime
stomach
Minister.
ailment to me.
Okay, well,
It came out of his mouth.
goodness, okay. Well, let's move on if we can, because that's sort of thrown me a bit there. But let's talk
We
about.
normally do.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about.
Frydenberg Husick, deliver it on Sky.
Let's talk about the ABC now. And yesterday, Craig Laundy, the well-respected member for Reid in Sydney, he was very blunt to the Prime Minister that he needed to own up to the cuts made to the ABC, to say, well, yes, they are cuts, and we have to do it because this is the budget situation. Why did it come to Craig Laundy to have to do this? Why aren't ministers doing it?
Well, it's not going to surprise you, Kieran, that I'm not going to divulge, just like Ed wouldn't divulge discussions that took place in our party room, other than to say on the ABC, which was, you know, discussed more generally and has been a principal topic in the Parliament this week, is we have gone through this process methodically. And Malcolm Turnbull deserves to be congratulated for getting Peter Lewis, the former CFO of Channel 7, to do an efficiency study of the ABC. And what he found was that whether it's in the back office, whether it's in the transmission, whether it's in the way they monitor their assets, whether they could move payroll tax, you know, and treat that differently, and the way they administer that differently, all those things could result in significant savings to the taxpayer. Now, we are contributing $5.2 billion over the next 5 years to the ABC instead of $5.5 billion. Now, any organisation of that size can find those modest savings. Now, it's up to Bill Shorten to say what his cuts are,
That's fine.
because yesterday in the
That's all
Parliament,
fine,
he
but-
said, you'll see my cuts when
Yeah.
we get into government.
But why did
That's not fine.
But you haven't really answered my question. I don't think you answered it at all, actually, because I was saying, why did it take a backbencher
But I'm not-
to have to say to the Prime Minister? Well, the Prime Minister clearly picked up the narrative that Laundy was talking about, because in question time straight away, he was changing the message and actually conceding that yes, these were cuts. Why is there this problem with that sort of messaging? It seems like it was obfuscation, and it was a bad look in the Parliament, certainly on Monday.
There's not obfuscation on my part to tell you I can't divulge what took place in the party room. Now, you may have had somebody who said to you, if somebody had said to you, you know, this is what Craig said, and Craig is a good friend, well respected, and makes a lot of important contributions both in and out of the party room.
Important and uncomfortable.
No.
Well, okay, well, let me ask you then,
not at all.
why didn't the PM just accept that, yes, these were cuts and you had to make them because the budget is in a dire state?
Because these are actually coming out of the Lewis efficiency study.
Doesn't change
Now,
the fact that they're cuts.
Well, it doesn't change the fact that $5.2 billion is still going into the ABC. But we have had to deal, to be honest, Kieran, with Labor's fiscal mess, and that does result in looking across the board.
Okay.
Where can we find?
Well, let's recap a bit. I'll come to Ed.
And the ABC is one of them.
I want to come to Ed now, but I just want to recap for our viewers what Malcolm Turnbull said to David Spears yesterday on the PM Agenda program. Here's a little of Mr. Turnbull.
He said no cuts to the ABC or SBS. There are cuts to the ABC or SBS. If you take the view that Tony Abbott's remarks the night before the election on SBS trumped and obliterated everything his colleagues had said on this matter, then yes, that promise, if that is a promise, has not been fulfilled.
So Malcolm Turnbull pretty blunt there that yes, there are cuts. But I guess the point to Labor is, do you restore the 250
Well, hang on a
million?
second. Let's not let Malcolm off the hook. I mean, there he was in the party room being all tough, talking about how the ABC was a workers' collective, and he unleashed this massive attack on the ABC. And he gets on Sky and then pretty much admits that it's not an efficiency cut or dividend, it's a broken promise. I mean, this is Malcolm being all things to all people, lion in the party room and lamb under lights. He can't play it both ways. And this is a clear breach of promise, and there is no way, and there is no way that the Prime Minister, well, they have been all backing in and using the Peter Lewis study as a Trojan horse. well, you're using as a Trojan horse to break promises. This is the problem for this government, that they keep going back and saying, well, you know, this is the mess that we were left in. You know, the PM in August last year said he would not use the budget as an excuse to break his promises. He built his whole government off the basis, and the foundation of his government is that there would be trust in government and that the commitments they made would be rock solid. And now he's getting in and he's breaking things. And I think the thing with the ABC cut is it's almost, you feel like a twig snap in terms of public confidence, because this is just a bridge too far. They keep making these cuts. People are losing jobs, 1 in 10 jobs in the ABC going, and as a result of this, and there'll be people that will be with less service, particularly in terms of regional Australia as well. I think people will be concerned that rely on the ABC to deliver service to them, and that is under threat.
Yeah, well, I'll get to you again in a moment, Ed, but just quickly to wrap up the government's view on this, is there a sense within the Liberal Party and the coalition more broadly that the government's got to step up its narrative here and communicate better? Because clearly that was a very clear promise. You've had to change it. Why don't you simply just say, as Mr Laundy said yesterday, circumstances have changed, we've got to deal with it, the budget's deteriorating further. Is there a sense that you've got to improve the way you communicate to the Australian people?
I think, Kieran, it is fair to say that when you are making the argument to the Australian people, context is vital. So yes, we have to keep explaining the context for our decisions, and that context, as the Prime Minister alluded to in the Parliament yesterday, is Labor's debt. And it's fine for Ed to come in here and say, we're going to make, you know, this and this promise, we're not going to make these and these cuts. But where is that money coming from? And that's the serious question for the Australian people.
Let's get Ed quickly to wrap up, and we'll go to a break. But on that point, Labor is complaining about the cuts, but surely the money does have to be found, and
Kieran,
there's no commitment from you to restore all that money.
Kieran, well, no, I mean, Bill has indicated that yesterday.
He's got a money tree.
And the point is, you know, as much as the government would like to shift this back to Labor, and everything that they do, they try to shift back to us, they cannot escape the clear fact that they said, when we make a commitment, we'll stick by it. This is about trust. And if they're going to be making changes in the future, the issue will be, how can people trust the commitments made in the change process down the track on other reforms that they have to undertake? They clearly can't.
All right, let's take a break. Back in just a moment with Josh Frydenberg and Ed Husick.